Hello and welcome to our 10th tutorial summary video. Today the topic is Yes We Can, American Hope, and those are our learning goals. We're basically going to look into hope as a concept and structure feeling for the American or US American people, and basically how did it come to be historically, what does the word mean, what concepts and structures are linked to it. We're going to look specifically at two examples. One is in general Black political struggles and human rights movement, as well as two poems. And then we're going to look at two political campaigns, namely Obama's and Trump's election campaigns. And yes, of course, how they utilize hope. The keywords are, of course, well, hope, and then also optimism and populism. Populism is a specific term, and we'll come to that when we talk about it. And then Make America Great Again, and Yes We Can, which is, as you might know, two political slogans. One is used by Donald Trump and the other by Barack Obama, or was used in their election campaigns. Now, the first topic is Hope in the US, a long history with contemporary consequences. And let's first have a look at dictionary definitions. What does hope mean? Hope is a keyword, so keep that in attention. Keep that in mind, sorry. Basically, here we have two definitions, one for hope as a verb and then as a noun from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And as you can see, hope is something that is filled with many positive ideas. And we can say, okay, it's looking forward to something positive, something wanting something to happen or wanting something to become true, expectations as well. So it is about something that doesn't happen yet or isn't there yet, but something that we want to happen, something that we desire. And so it is actually looking forward in a positive stance to something else, something that you'd also probably say for optimism. And now, what we are going to talk about with regard to hope is how is hope a structure of feeling? What is this relationship between culture and hope? And can hope maybe also inspire political change? And I mean, those are very broad questions, but of course, that's the case. There is a structure of feeling associated with hope, because hope, in a way, if you remember that structures of feeling definition from the very first video, hope and the structures of feeling. Structures of feeling mean how do you relate as a person to your environment? How do you understand your environment, make sense of it? How do you experience your environment? What do you feel about it? And hope is, of course, one of those relationships that you have with your environment. You look forward to something, you desire something to become true. And so hope is a structure of feeling that enables people to relate to their environment, to their government, to their society, and also that enables people to relate to each other in a positive stance. And culture and hope have a very distinct relationship, because the question of what is to be hoped for a complete culture. So, what do the US Americans nowadays hope for example? Of course, there are individuals within, but you can certainly map out certain directions therein, where people are, as a collective, hoping for something. And something is associated with this is a positive change that we want to achieve all together. So, you have this culturally determined idea of what can we hope for and what can't we hope for. So culture does indeed tell you what you can hope for and structure how you feel about it. And then the question of political change, well, let's have a look at some historical examples for that. We talked about most of those examples, and I'm so sorry because I realized that, of course, there's a mistake in there. I put Declaration of Independence twice, and of course, the Americans didn't declare their independence twice, but the latter one is the Civil Rights Movement. But what we can see here is that Columbus going over the ocean trying to find India, okay, well, he didn't find India, but he discovered a new country or new continent, actually. It was driven by the hope to find something. So, hoping to do something, people gathered on those ships and set sail for Asia, but they didn't land there. And the same was with the Pilgrims and Puritans. They hoped for a better life where they could live their religious identity. And because of that, they set sail for the Americas. Same with the Declaration of Independence. And then also this notion of the American dream. People going to the Americas, living in that society, struggling in that society, because of the hope to have a shared nation, a special nation, to achieve the American dream. And so this basically answers all those questions. Hope as a structure of feeling specifically tied to the American or US American culture, this American dream, people coming there, going for a better life, for equality, for conditions that they don't have where they come from. And then also changes that happen because of hope. A declaration of independence because of the dissatisfaction with the government installed by the British. Then also, if we look at today or the past century, maybe first, civil rights movement, human rights, rights that people stand up for and that people struggle for in order to really change the whole country. And we are going to look at one of those struggles, or a rather broad movement, in a bit more detail, which is the relationship of hope and the Afro-American struggles for representation and justice. Let's first have a look at two poems. Um, One poem is I Hear America Singing by Walt Whitman. The other one is I Too Hear America Sing, is then the first line, by Langston Hughes. And one keyword that I want to mention here is intertextuality. The poem I have on that slide, I Hear America Singing, is from the 19th century, and it basically represents this hope, the hope of people singing, and we have certain people who are represented in that poem. We have, for example, the carpenter that measures his plank beam, a mason makes ready for work or leaves off for work, boatmen, shoemakers, woodcutters. Then we also have women represented, but represented not in jobs, but as mothers, as a young wife or a girl sewing or washing. So we have gender roles here. And we have a lot of people represented, but not everybody, because people of color, native people, are not represented. Now we have a second poem, which is I Too Sing America by Langston Hughes. And now here we have exactly that. I mean, the poem is, of course, much longer than the excerpt that we have here. But here we are basically having representation of people of color, and also the hope that one day those people will be, well, represented better. And that poem is from the 1920s. So it looks at the old poem, takes some characteristics and this idea of I sing America, or I hear America singing, and then applies it to this struggle for more rights and for representation of African Americans. What is also relevant here and interesting for us, because if you think back to the last video, we talked about food. Now, look at that and look at the text that is written there, and suddenly you see, oh, it is about food. It is about eating. Where does one eat? It's kitchen politics. Where do people belong with regard to the kitchen or eating? And then also food and food intake. Just eating is something that shows where is your place in society. Can you sit at the table, or are you supposed to just hide in the kitchen and not be in the public, so to say? So food is here. Food and eating is here. Are here practices that are relevant to where is your place in society. So this is also a link back to the last session. And they are also, in this case, a sign of representation for people of color. And now, if we look at something that came a little later, we have Martin Luther King. And, well, the best known and very extremely influential speech held by him in 1963 is this I Have a Dream speech. And this one utilizes hope to a vast extent because, I mean, this is a hope. I have a dream that one day, that is hope for something better. And this is exactly what is represented in that speech, what is utilized in this whole movement for the rights of the people of color, for basically a movement towards a society that is more equal, a society that realizes this American dream for more people, for everybody. So basically, that is a hope that is utilized, that is basically the key message of that speech, and that is utilized by those wordings, I have a dream one day. And now what is very interesting about that speech is that it's not only the speech from 1963 that we know. If I say, I have a dream that one day, I think that some of you might remember those lines not from the speech, but from a song, or rather a remix, the one by Bakermat. One Day, it's called, and it basically utilizes that speech, it remixes that speech, and is a popular music song nowadays. We also have, there's a link there, but you can't click on the link if you have the YouTube video, so probably I will either put I will say that I put the links in the description and then I forget it, or you just look, if you are the tutorial, at the tutorial slides, because there you can just click on the links. But yeah, so you have a list of 50 best songs about Martin Luther King, and many of them also utilize the words from that speech. So basically, it is remediated, and also his persona is remediated in order to utilize that motive of hope, and hope for a better world, hope for a more equal society for all people. And this is extremely influential, not only in 1963, but since then in popular music and popular culture, a motive that is culturally tied to certain movements and then utilized in the US American context. Now, let's delve from that to hope and contemporary politics. A person that is, or who is associated with hope a lot is Barack Obama, because hope is actually one of the key motives in his presidential campaigns and also in what we would call his legacy. Um, and with regard to the Obama Foundation, that is basically where he continues his work. Um, we have this slogan of "Yes, we can" as a key motive, and I mean, yes, we can. This is looking forward to something. And what is also very interesting is this hope poster that I gave you on the slide here as well, as a visual representation of that campaign. Actually, the poster wasn't designed to be the visual representation of the campaign, but it just came to be. The artist designed it, people took it up, and then it was printed everywhere. And so hope really became the key message of that campaign and became and started to stand for that. What I also found very interesting is that it's a button that I gave you there from the 2008 presidential campaign. It says "Keep Hope Alive," and so it's exactly that, the idea of hope as a key motive within this political campaign. And then I have a quote from Obama himself from the 2008 election campaign as well. And now it reads, quote, "This campaign can't be only about me. It must be about us. It must be about what we can do together. This campaign must be the occasion, the vehicle of your hopes." There we have it. Of your hopes and your dreams. And if you, unquote, of course, if you think about dreams and hopes, that is actually also kind of linking it back to Martin Luther King. So basically linking himself back to a certain movement in society that utilized hope already. We also have one scholar, Lauren Berland, who wrote about this campaign at length and coined the concept of populism for this campaign. And in order to understand what she means by that, let's look at two other definitions. First, populism. And I mean, maybe you notice that populism is in populism. But Berlin doesn't view populism in this negative sense that it's oftentimes associated with, but says it's rather the creation of a sense of the people, a sense of unity among masses that produces political action. Not in a negative sense, but actually just in general. It can be used negatively, of course. It can be exploited. It can be used to make false promises and then promise people the world and then give them nothing. But it can also be it is just a necessary means of basically making the people stand up and vote for you. So basically, it's something that Obama utilizes a lot. And then he basically links that to optimism. So, as the OED or Oxford English Dictionary says, as the dictionary definition here, hopefulness and confidence about the future or the successful outcome of something, a tendency to take a favorable or hopeful view, unquote. So basically, we have this populism with a look at optimism that is the key mechanism in Obama's election campaign. And now Lauren Berland says that we can call this populism. And she writes, and this is a quote again, that this is basically a complex thing. It's populism for optimism and also for opulence, because it is this, and I love that wording, a quote, magnetizing promise of his icon pointing to the wealth whose interests his administration serves. So basically, a very opulent campaign that shows, look, this is what we can achieve. Yes, we can, if we just cling to our hopes and dreams. And I think that is very paradigmatic of how hope is something that is deeply associated with US American culture and extremely also successful and convincing in political action. Now, well, we have another person who is currently the president of the United States of America. And this is Donald Trump, and he has also has a campaign. It's called "Make America Great Again," and once more, a kind of hope is utilized. This is, however, not a "yes, we can" looking to the future, but rather a look at the past. We had it good once. Let's go there again. Let's re-establish older conditions and older conventions. Now, one question that I like to ask, because I find it wildly interesting, is which past does he allude here to? And if you think about it, we can say that, well, actually, he claims some particularities of the past and creates a vision of a past that actually never existed. He just creates a vision of a past that he thinks would be favorable for himself and the people he stands for, but that past never existed. America was never the America that Trump likes to. This vision never existed before. It's just something where he takes some particularities and creates an image, but actually it's just, this is my vision of America, and I can claim national mythology that we had this before, but actually it never existed before. So it's nothing that he wants to reestablish, but rather he wants to really fulfill his own vision of America in, and now this is a quote from the lecture actually because I loved it. And he has this nostalgia driven political campaign that produces a downfall trajectory between the past and the present while promising a better future that's more like the past, and in this case, a past as he constructs it for his voters. This, of course, also a form of populism because it creates a shared identity, a people, the people, we, um, who then basically grasp for a struggle for political action. But this kind of populism would be more filled with actually empty promises and a lot of words that are more vague, and because of that bind the people rather than Obama's campaign, which was really just this very positive outlook on society. Now, the only thing left for me to give you is an application task, and I thought it might actually be interesting to really look at one of the examples that we discussed in the course of the lecture. For example, Columbus's discovery of America, the migration to the US in the 19th century, which also is also super driven by the hope for a better life. The civil rights movement and Martin Luther King, or also Obama's or Trump's political campaigns or legacies. And now I would say, if you have the time, then just research that topic. Look at cultural texts that we discussed or that you find online that surround those examples, pictures, written documents, and everything else, videos, if there are videos, of course. You won't find any videos of Columbus. And analyze them regarding how do they utilize the concept of hope and how do they draw upon other concepts that we discussed. So basically, as we had in this poem, linking hope to food, to eating as a cultural practice that shows your place in society. And you can also go for gender studies, for example. You can also go for just cultural studies and structures of feeling in general. You can go for other aspects like this manifest destiny that we discussed in the course of the lecture. So there is a lot we discussed and a lot that you can use in your analysis. And never forget, we had this like one slide in one of the tutorial sessions where it was like, what do you do if you analyze a cultural text? You look at it, then you describe it, and so basically you name what you can see, you link that to concepts that we had, and then you draw a conclusion from that. That's always what you do. Never we first describe everything, then we describe it again and say what it means in connection to concepts, but we just do that on a whole. But we always have those three aspects. What is there? What does it mean if we link it to the concepts that we had, and what is the conclusion that we can draw from that? So that's very important. And now, with that, I would say I'll leave you to it. Thank you for your participation, and well, see you next week is a bit funny because, well, some will see my face next week, other will not. But if you have any questions that's important here, drop me a message. And yeah, apart from that, I hope that you could take something away from that video for yourself.